Have you ever felt like you've hit rock bottom? Like you're beyond redemption? Meet Victor, a man who spent years on the streets, rejected by society, forgotten by all, until a kind-hearted nun named Clara stepped into his life and changed everything. This is a story about second chances, faith, and healing, one that will make you believe that no one is ever too far gone. At St. Gabriel Hospital, everything seemed ordinary. The usual hum of doctors, nurses, and patients filled the halls. But something unusual was happening in the general medicine ward, particularly in room 305. Here lay Victor, an elderly man struggling with severe pneumonia, his frail body barely hanging on. But it wasn't Victor who had become the focus of attention. It was the constant presence of Sister Clara. Every day, without fail, Clara visited Victor, bringing him small tokens of kindness, a Bible, a basket of fruit, or a gentle smile. At first, the staff paid little attention, but soon, curiosity began to grow. Why was Sister Clara spending so much time with him? What was it about their connection that was so different from her other visits? As the days passed, whispers started to spread through the hospital corridors. Some were concerned, others intrigued, but Clara remained unwavering in her mission. She wasn't just there to administer prayers or gifts. She was there to offer Victor something much more profound, a chance at redemption, a reminder that he mattered. In that sterile hospital room, a miracle was quietly unfolding, proving that even the most broken souls could heal, one act of kindness at a time. And for Victor, it was Clara's unwavering faith that gave him a reason to believe in himself again. Victor was not like most patients in the hospital. His frail body, weakened by years of homelessness, had barely survived the harsh winter, only to be struck down by a severe case of pneumonia. With no family, no friends, and no one to care for him, he was left to face the world alone. For years, Victor had wandered the streets, his health deteriorating with each passing day, until the hospital finally took him in as a last resort, a place where he could wait out his final days. But in room 305, amidst the sterile walls of St. Gabriel Hospital, a quiet transformation was taking place. It wasn't the hospital's medical staff who brought light into Victor's life. It was Sister Clara. Sister Clara had been a fixture in the hospital for years, known for her tireless service and deep devotion to those in need. She had visited countless patients, offering comfort and prayer, but there was something different about her visits to room 305. The nurses began to notice it. Clara's frequent visits to the frail, elderly man seemed to last longer each day. Her conversations with Victor, soft and heartfelt, carried on well past her usual visits. The bond between them deepened as the days passed, and soon, the hospital staff couldn't help but talk. "Who is that man to her?" whispered one nurse to another as they watched from the station. "It's not normal for a nun to visit so often and stay so long. Something's going on." The whispers grew, but Clara remained unaffected by them. Her focus remained entirely on Victor, a man who had been forgotten by the world but not by her. Every time she entered his room, a faint light seemed to flicker inside him. His face, usually tired and worn from years of hardship, would brighten with a shy smile. His eyes, once hollow and devoid of hope, began to gleam with a small but unmistakable spark of something Victor hadn't felt in a long time: hope. To Clara, Victor was more than just another patient. She saw in him not the weathered man he had become, but the man he could still be. She knew that Victor had lived through hardships that no one should have to endure, and yet, she also knew that within him lay a soul worth saving. Each day, Clara would sit by his bedside, sometimes reading from the Bible, sometimes just offering a comforting silence. Victor, who had long since abandoned the idea of redemption, started to listen to Clara's words. And though he couldn't quite believe it, something deep inside him began to shift. For the first time in years, he began to wonder, could there be more to his life than just surviving? Could he still find peace, even at this late stage in his life? The rumors continued to swirl among the staff, but Clara paid them no mind. She didn't need to explain herself to anyone. She knew what Victor needed, and she wasn't about to abandon him. She had made a promise to be there for him, to remind him that even when the world seems dark, there is always a flicker of light waiting to guide you home. And that flicker of light was enough to keep Victor going, one small, steady step at a time. Victor's life had been a series of painful failures. Born into a family he loved, he had once hoped for a future full of promise. But his choices, a relentless focus on work and an inability to balance his responsibilities, drove a wedge between him and his wife, Helen. As the years passed, the distance between them grew until Victor, unable to face the shame of returning home empty-handed, made the heartbreaking decision to leave. He couldn't bring himself to show his face again. Alone on the streets, Victor became a shadow of the man he once was. With no family, no friends, and no one to turn to, his life became defined by an overwhelming loneliness that followed him wherever he went. The streets were cold and unforgiving, and as the years wore on, Victor's hope slowly faded, leaving him to wonder if he would ever escape the pain of his past. But then came Sister Clara. Every day, Clara visited him in the hospital, quietly offering comfort and hope. Her presence was steady and calming, and over time, Victor began to feel something he hadn't felt in years, a flicker of warmth, a sense that maybe he wasn't as invisible as he had once thought. One morning, Clara entered his room as she always did, gently placing a Bible on his nightstand. She looked at him with kindness in her eyes and asked, "How are you feeling today, Victor?" Victor sighed, his voice weak and weary. "The same as always, sister. I feel tired, but when you're here, it's different. I feel less useless." Clara's smile was soft, but her words were firm and filled with love. "You're not useless, Victor. Every life has value, even when it seems like everything is lost." Victor met her gaze, his eyes filled with skepticism. "I don't know why you care so much about me. I'm just an old homeless man, forgotten by the world." Clara leaned in, her voice unwavering yet gentle. "That's not true. Someone did want you, Victor. God wanted you, and that's why you're still here. And I'm here to remind you of that." Her words were like a lifeline thrown into the deep waters of his despair. Clara didn't see a man defined by his failures. She saw a soul, a person worthy of love and redemption. For the first time in years, Victor began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, he was still worth saving. Clara's dedication to Victor wasn't just a sense of duty, it was deeply personal. She knew what it felt like to be lost, to struggle with anger and a crushing sense of disillusionment. Before she had taken her vows, Clara herself had battled with depression, often feeling worthless and abandoned. It wasn't until someone reached out to her with unconditional kindness, offering a hand without judgment or condemnation, that she found a new path. That act of compassion had changed her life, and now, she felt compelled to offer the same hope to Victor. "I'm here, Victor," she told him one day, her voice steady but full of warmth, "because someone once showed me there was a different path, and I want to offer you the same hope." Victor, who had grown used to being discarded by society, listened intently to Clara's words. There was something different about her, a sincerity that pierced through his years of pain and disbelief. Her presence gave him a sense of comfort he hadn't known in a long time, and slowly, the hardened shell around his heart began to soften. But while Victor began to open up, the whispers among the hospital staff only grew louder. Clara's frequent visits to room 305, her long hours spent with Victor, raised suspicions. Most patients had brief interactions with their caregivers, but Clara had made it clear that her bond with Victor went far beyond professional duty. One afternoon, a nurse named Lena, who had noticed the growing connection, decided to confront Clara. "Sister," Lena asked, her voice cautious, "can I ask you something? Why do you spend so much time with Mr. Victor? He's just a patient like any other, but there seems to be a special connection between you two." Clara's expression softened, and she paused before responding, but she didn't shy away from the question. "Although Victor is a lost soul trying to find himself," she said quietly, "I promised to accompany him on this journey. Once, when I felt lost, someone did the same for me." Lena, though taken aback by the response, didn't press further. She simply nodded and walked away, but Clara's words hung in the air long after she left. Despite the nurse's silence, the rumors among the staff continued to simmer, growing stronger with each passing day. Clara, however, remained resolute in her mission. unwavering in her commitment to offer Victor the same compassion that had once saved her own life. The situation escalated when Father David, the hospital chaplain, began to hear the whispers circulating among the staff about Clara's frequent visits to Victor. Concerned that the growing rumors could lead to scandal or misunderstandings, he decided to have a private conversation with her. "Clara," Father David began, his voice both gentle and fatherly, "I've heard things. I admire your dedication to your work, but I'm concerned that your attention to Mr. Victor may be misunderstood. People are talking." Clara listened carefully, fully aware of the gossip, but her resolve remained unshaken. "I know, Father, but Victor is more than just a patient to me. He's a person who needs to be seen, to be heard, and I can't ignore him, not after everything he's been through. He's lost so much and has no one left. I can't walk away from that." Father David sighed, his face softening with understanding. He could see how deeply Clara cared, but he also knew the importance of guarding her reputation and the potential consequences of her actions. He hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "Then be strong, Clara. The truth always comes out in the end, but you must be ready to defend what you believe in. This is about more than what others think. It's about your faith, your mission, and what you feel called to do." Clara nodded solemnly, her eyes filled with quiet determination. She understood the weight of Father David's words, but her commitment to Victor, and to the calling she had embraced, remained clear in her heart. She would continue to stand by him, no matter the rumors that swirled around her. One evening, as Clara sat by Victor's bedside, the silence between them was thick with unspoken words. Victor, his frail body wrapped in the hospital blankets, turned his gaze toward her, his eyes clouded with guilt. "Sister," he said, his voice heavy with emotion, "I know your presence here is causing trouble. Maybe you should stop coming. I don't want your reputation ruined because of me." Clara's hand tightened around his, a quiet strength in her touch. She shook her head, her gaze steady and unwavering. "I don't care what they say, Victor. What matters is that you know you're not alone. I'm here for you, no matter what." Victor's eyes filled with tears, his voice breaking as the weight of his past came crashing down on him. "I don't deserve your help. I've ruined everything. I've lost my wife, my daughter, everything. I've messed it all up." Clara leaned in closer, her voice gentle yet firm, carrying the warmth of years of compassion. "None of us are defined by our failures, Victor. Every mistake, every loss, it doesn't have to be the end. It's never too late to rebuild your life." She paused, letting her words settle. "And I'll be here, every step of the way, to remind you of that." Victor looked at her, his heart heavy with shame, but also with the faintest glimmer of hope. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't entirely lost. Maybe, just maybe, he could start over. And with Clara by his side, perhaps redemption wasn't as far out of reach as he had thought. With Clara's encouragement, Victor found the strength to do something he thought was impossible: reach out to his daughter, Maya, whom he hadn't seen in decades. The weight of his past, the mistakes he'd made, and the pain of leaving his family behind had kept him silent for so long. But now, with Clara's unwavering support, he decided to write a letter. It was a letter filled with sorrow, regret, and a deep desire to make things right. He poured his heart into it, hoping that somehow, his words might bridge the gap he had created between himself and the daughter he loved but had abandoned. Together, Clara and Victor waited for a response, their hearts heavy with anticipation. Each day felt like an eternity. Would Maya be willing to hear him out? Would she be able to forgive him? Or would the years of silence and pain be too much to overcome? Then, one afternoon, the letter arrived. Victor's hands trembled as he carefully opened the envelope, his heart racing. Clara stood by his side, her presence a steady source of comfort. She knew how much this moment meant to him, how much he was risking by reaching out. She quietly watched, offering her support as Victor unfolded the letter. Inside, Maya's words were clear, her handwriting as familiar as it was distant. "Dad, I've thought long and hard about this letter," she wrote. "I can't say it will be easy, but I want to meet you. I need answers, and maybe you do too." Victor's breath caught in his throat, his eyes brimming with tears. He whispered, barely able to believe it, "I never imagined she would give me this chance." Tears streamed down his face as the weight of what was happening hit him. After all these years, after all the pain and the distance, his daughter was offering him a chance, something he had never dared hope for. Clara gently placed her hand on his shoulder, her voice soft but steady. "This is the beginning, Victor. You've taken the first step, and now you can rebuild what was broken." For the first time in a long while, Victor felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he could begin to heal the wounds of the past. With Clara's unwavering belief in him, he realized that even the deepest scars could be mended, one step at a time. The day finally came when Victor and Maya met face to face. The small hospital room was charged with emotion as father and daughter locked eyes for the first time in years. Maya stood hesitant, her emotions guarded, while Victor, frail and vulnerable, sat on the bed, his heart racing. There was a long silence before Maya spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't say it's easy to forgive you, Dad," she said, her words hanging heavy in the air. "But seeing you here, so vulnerable, makes me realize that you're trying to change. I want to give you this chance." Victor's heart swelled with emotion, his eyes filling with tears. He couldn't find the words to express the depth of his gratitude, but the weight of Maya's forgiveness filled the room. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Thank you, Maya. I don't deserve this, but I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make things right." The years of pain and regret seemed to melt away in that moment, replaced with the possibility of healing. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was a beginning, an opportunity for redemption that Victor never thought he would have. And for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, it was never too late to make amends. Victor's recovery wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual, and psychological. The support from Clara, combined with his renewed connection with Maya, sparked something deep inside him. Slowly, the man who had once wandered the streets feeling lost and broken began to find his way back to life. His relationship with his daughter deepened, and the old wounds of regret and sorrow were healed through the healing power of forgiveness and love. When he was finally discharged from the hospital, Victor made a life-changing decision. He joined Clara's parish community, dedicating his time to helping others who were once where he had been, alone, forgotten, and struggling. Through his work with outreach to the homeless, Victor discovered a new sense of purpose. He wasn't just helping others. He was rebuilding himself, one act of kindness at a time. A year later, Victor was unrecognizable, not just because he had regained his health, but because he had found his place in the world again. The man who once had nothing now had a purpose, a sense of belonging, and a heart full of hope. He shared his story with those who were lost, just as Clara had done for him. His transformation wasn't just physical. It was a complete renewal of spirit. Victor's story is a testament to the power of second chances. It proves that no matter how far we fall, there's always someone ready to lend a hand. Love, faith, and forgiveness have the power to transform what seemed hopeless into something beautiful. No life is beyond redemption. Victor's message to anyone struggling: no matter how lost you feel, there's always someone ready to help. And every life deserves a second chance. If you believe that everyone deserves a second chance, leave a comment below and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let's spread the message of hope and redemption together.